All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever time of day you're viewing this. Welcome to today's episode of Raw Podcast. I am your host, Rahsaan Corbin II. And we're back with another video, another interview, however you want to describe it, with season three. Want to know what's so special about number three? Number three is the powerhouse region of the National Society of Black Engineers. The region, the region three fall regional conference is when I met this guest. I only met this man through GroupMe and email. And we finally met in person. He gave me the help I needed. Anyway, I'm done with all the introduction, giving the whole background. I have my guest, Justin Merriwether. How you doing today, man?
Man, I'm doing great, Rahsaan. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we talked about this before, but I was like, we're at the airport. Got the airport at the same time leaving convention this past year. And I'm like, you know what? You want to be a guest on my podcast? You're like, sure, why not? And now we're here. Like 2 months in the
Yeah,
making.
so impromptu. It was just you told me too. You were like, I'm gonna see somebody from this NSBE convention when I leave on Sunday. And it's funny because we spent 2 hours talking just
Hmm.
on the floor. I think it was like Thursday or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Just
that first day.
randomly.
That first day just ran into you. And next thing you know, like, whoa, look at the time. Just catching up and stuff. That was funny. That was funny. Then we talked more at the airport. I wasn't expecting to run into anyone at the airport, to be honest. And all of a sudden I ran into you. You said my name. I'm like, yo, when's your flight? This time. Mine's this time. All right, I'll meet you at this gate. And then, just go from there. But yeah, but happy to have you on nonetheless. So, we laughed a little bit before camera, laughed a little bit now. Let's do a little icebreaker. Let's see. If you could if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go and why?
Mm, anywhere in the world, man. I've been to a few places. A few. I'd say probably I'm gonna go to Africa actually.
Mm,
Maybe let's just say probably South Africa. I think that's just a probably a good place to start, I'd say. I don't know, visit
and,
the coast. I just want to
and what's the
get that
reason
feel.
behind it?
So I've been to funny, I don't know if I've ever told you this, Rasan. I grew up overseas in Saudi Arabia for first 15 years or so of my life, give or take.
Mm,
My parents worked as expatriates over there and they worked for Saudi Aramco, uh, which I think still is probably the biggest oil company in the world at this time. So I'm no stranger to travel, but there are still places that I just haven't had the opportunity to get to yet. So like, Africa, I've been to Poland, I think in Europe. Asia is also a good place. You know what? Also a very close second is Japan. I'll say that as well. But that's my reasoning. I want to touch all corners of the globe.
yeah, travel is always good. Yeah, you can learn a lot from traveling. Um, Gain new experiences. It can also be like a mental reset, depending on where you are. Especially if you're in like a nice place on an island, you're looking at the sunset. That's a nice little reset. I was in Puerto Rico last year for spring break. That was an amazing reset.
Ooh.
So yeah, I can't complain about that. Shoot, waffles or pancakes?
Quite the mood switch. But you know
Yeah,
what?
you never know the next move. That's why I didn't put the icebreaker on the the form I sent you.
We can see the ice broken, man. Uh
The ice is shattered.
I say, man, my mom makes some great pancakes, but I'm very much a waffle guy.
Mm.
Waffles, and then you get the syrup and never mind. Let me stop.
He's about to get hungry. About to go order
Yeah.
from Waffle House real quick.
Mhm. 'Cause I was thinking, I'm just like, you get the butter and then the syrup, and
Yeah.
you get different types of syrup.
All types
Sometimes I
of
used to put two on them at
arrangements.
a time.
Bro's trying to mix together chemicals, make a chemical reaction in the stomach.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah, let me be serious.
let me be serious. Anyway, what's one thing you're looking forward to this week? Another week just started. It's Tuesday, but what's one thing you're looking forward to?
Um, this is this is graduation week for either a lot of people I know or well, specifically, I'm going to my cousin's graduation in a few days. So
Okay.
shout out to her. Can't wait to see her graduate. She's about to walk the stage and everything. So she made it. She's graduating in, I think, something in veterinary school. I can't remember her exact discipline, but yeah, she made it. So
Shout out to your
shout her
cousin.
out.
Shout out to your cousin. Congrats to her. You know, graduation is a long journey. I don't know how the veterinarian school works, but shout out to
Yeah,
her.
yeah, it's a
uh,
long process. It's like, so you do, just a typical school, I think. And then I remember she did practice, or she did, I think it's called residency, if that's what she did. It's a long process. I think we know that as engineers.
yeah, I can't
Yeah.
imagine as a medical field, especially if it's a nurse. They're a nurse. They
Mhm.
gotta like get clinical residential hours. I forgot the name of it. Anyway, they gotta get all that stuff, and then they go to nursing school for like another 4 or 5 years, and then boom, now they're in the real world.
Yeah.
And even
Mhm.
surgeons, I'm not gonna go too in depth, but even surgeons, you know what I'm saying? Really, if you mess with one part, you know what I'm saying? But like, nonetheless, let me go. All right, we're gonna do two more of these questions. What would you do if you won the lottery?
Hmm. I would invest some of that money and then uh, fund my own startup. Just bootstrap it right away. Because
Responsible
that's,
spending.
yeah, yeah. Because, yeah, well, it depends on how much you win, of course. But
Mm.
if it were like a small lottery, like a couple million, yeah, that's probably what I'd do. That's what I'm thinking. If it were like 350 mil, oh, shoot.
Go ahead, book that trip to Japan.
Mhm.
You can stay for a month if
I'm,
you wanted to, all that money.
that's what I'm saying. That's a act like I'm in a different tax bracket all of a sudden.
For one day. One little ticket. All right.
Oh,
All right. So, since we're in the spirit of NSB 50, what's your favorite memory from your time working with a team of people, either on a board or even when you were part of the entrepreneurship special interest group this past year? Like, what was your favorite part of working in a team?
yeah, man. I had quite a few NSBE memories. I think it was kind of, I'd say probably midway through my career when I first got on the regional executive board. I think it was kind of when we first got there. For me, it was uh, Anaheim. Yeah. I had never been to California. And mind you, we were just getting out of like a half virtual, half in person year. So this was that other half that was in person because FRC was virtual in, I think, 2021. And we hadn't
Yeah.
been, to travel. We had been on camera, kind of like this. We had all the backstage stuff. We had a whole crew that was organizing all the events and everything, all the general sessions. But man, that was like that was just kind of this tipping point for me as a young engineer in school when I realized like exactly what engineering is. Because I don't think like, coming out of quarantine, that's a year and a half.
Yeah.
You're we got a lot of students that had never seen what that's like. I don't know if you can probably speak to that too. We graduated around the same time, yeah. So I mean,
Yeah. My first convention wasn't until Kansas City, though. My first national convention was till
that's right.
Kansas City. So I didn't go to
That's right.
Anaheim. I just went, next year or the next. So my first convention was Fall Regional Conference 2022 when I met you.
Okay.
So that was
That's
my
right.
first like
Okay.
ever in-person NSBE related convention. I've been to the RLC virtually. I think it was that year. No, the year before it was virtual, and then FRC was virtual too. So yeah, I had a good time. Always a good memory. Everybody always says favorite memory, national convention, national
Oh
convention. No
yeah.
matter which one it is, they say national convention.
Yeah. Because it's always like, I mean, it's just the perfect, I don't know, it's just the perfect setup for, great memories to be made, right?
Hmm.
For me, Anaheim was like, every city has a different feel. I mean, just like it's night and day different, like East Coast to West Coast. So, Chicago was great. I still can't like, I think Chicago was probably one of the better cities I've been to. Well, Casey, I was kind of stuck inside. I had to make sure all the gears were turning behind the scenes, but
Hmm.
just at the regional level back when I was regional vice. But like Anaheim, it's funny how it was a fitting theme because it felt like it was a movie in some regards, just like some of the weird things that would happen.
Hmm.
So like you'd be walking down the street and then somebody starts yelling at you randomly.
That's random.
Yes,
So random, like a movie scene.
yes. And it's like, I don't know, it's just something about the setup of it and everything. And then like all the stuff that was happening at the same time.
Mm.
Not necessarily, it was not drama, but it was just a lot of fun. It's the first time getting out. Like it just goes, it's an up and down roller coaster, man. But that's why I always appreciate it. It's always like annual convention, getting
Mm.
out, seeing the vibes of different cities and everything, man. That's one thing I
Yeah.
always appreciated.
Yeah, I definitely had a good time this year. First time as a professional, helping recruit for a company. I work for Micron Technology. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to them for being a sponsor in NSB. But cool. You know what I'm saying? We got the icebreaker out the way. The glass is broken, shattered, all over the
Mm-hmm.
place, scattered. That rhymed. I didn't mean the rhyme.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get a bit of let's get a bit of excuse me background about you. Where you from? Where'd you go to school? You had the shirt on, and then what'd you
Yes.
study?
Yeah. So, as I said, grew up overseas in Saudi Arabia, but I'm originally from the US. So, my dad's from Mississippi, my mom's from Kansas City, and moved over there when I was about 1 years old. But I went to school. I had to go to boarding school in North Carolina. No, I did not get in trouble. That's something I get that a lot when I tell people that, and I'm just gonna take this time to tell my backstory, just because I
Go
usually don't get
ahead.
to.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I because it's a lot of stuff, man. But yeah, so I went there because they actually stopped the American school system over there around, I think it's ninth grade, I think. So it'll go up to that level, but they don't have a high school. So they help you, get into a school in the US, or, it can be anywhere pretty much in Switzerland, uh, somewhere in Europe, I think, UK, probably different schools and all that type of stuff. But I went to a school, an Asheville school, or the Asheville school in Asheville, North Carolina. And then after that, I kind of decided late that I wanted to get into engineering. That was around 2019. And I've been looking at different schools and I decided to go to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. Uh, yeah. Now, you're probably wondering why. There is, I want to give a shout out to somebody who's pretty much been my mentor, kind of advisor through the years. Shout out to Mr. Travis Griffin, uh, Freddie Brown Jr., Director of Engineering Diversity Programs at the time of this interview. So if it weren't for him, I probably wouldn't have made it. They offered it was a pre-calculus credit and then some engineering physics experience as a pre-college course. And I didn't have a pre-calculus credit, which was something you basically needed to get into engineering school, right?
Hmm.
So I took the program and I said, well, okay, I'm gonna stay here for a year. And if I don't like it, I'll transfer. But, I ended up sticking through it just because all the people I met, it was like, why start over? So I put in 5 years there and I graduated in December 2024.
And
A
what'd
few
you
months
major
later, here
in?
we are. Yeah, I am a major in mechanical engineering. Can I forget?
So, and then
Yes.
post grad, what you doing now?
Yeah. For postgrad, I got a few things going for myself, but now I'm still on the job search, I will say that, but I have slowed down just to pursue a few other things as well. You know, it's a matter of taking your time. Once the right opportunity presents itself, especially since I'm looking in one city, which is Houston. When it comes up, it'll be there. But other than that, I was just taking some time to like plan and do a few other things as well. So like, for example, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, like I'm doing entrepreneurship, kind of focusing in that field. And then I'm also actually doing a few other things that kind of accompany me with that as well, right? So I'm writing a patent right now. It's not completely,
A
yeah.
lot's changed in the 2 months since we last talked.
Boy, I know. That's why I slowed down, because I realized that if I had gone into industry, I probably would have gotten a little more distracted, or would have taken me some more time. So that's why I was like, let me flesh this idea out that I have, right? So, um, yeah, and I haven't updated you, Rahsaan. I apologize for that,
No,
but
you're good, bro. You're good.
yeah.
You're good. I'm just messing with you.
But yeah, been focused on, it's mainly in the energy field, just different types of hydrogen tech. How do you produce hydrogen through what's electrolysis, which is, in the case that I'm using it, you split water using an electric arc between two electrodes. So just looking at that and seeing like what business opportunities are there, and then also leveraging AI. It's also a very big thing that I think everybody needs to be aware of and investing in now. But using that to develop like and flesh out what's going to go into a patent like this for myself. So yeah, it's been it's been about 6 weeks in development. I only filed about a week ago. So
Okay. Nice. Congrats on that. Congrats on that. That's a really big accomplishment. Really big.
thank you.
Okay. Cool. So, like I mentioned before, well, you already have the Nesby shirt on. It's very visible. You see the end with the lightning bolts and the torch. Um, gotta show. Gotta rep your
Want to see it
school.
again?
Not. Want to see from behind that rock? Let me do it again. Anyway, like I said, we met through Nesby, and I like hearing about people's story through Nesby because at national convention we only get so much time to talk, and we're usually like catching up on recent life events. So like, can you talk about your journey through Nesby, like how you first got involved and how you eventually made it to almost from even vice chair and then making it to the entrepreneurship SIG. Actually, we'll start there. How'd describe your journey from being a member, joining to being vice chair at the regional level?
Yeah, it was looking back, I'm also taking a lot of time to reflect after, going through school after so many years. But how I started, you know, I think I was just thinking like, oh, I'm just going to be a regular member, go to a few meetings. And it eventually started evolving into something else. I said, well, I don't have a lot of stuff on my resume as I was going into sophomore year. I said, okay, let me sign up for, a relatively easy board position. And I chose communications chair for UT, I think 2021 or 2020 to 2021. So I said, okay, it's just a regular position for the most part. Nothing too special about it. Kind of just get my feet wet, see what it's like to be in leadership. And then quarantine happened. So I go to school in UT, or, I went to school in UT, but I'm in Houston now, and I'm in the same room, and I didn't have a whole lot to do. So I needed something I was going to do, and it became a passion project for me. So, I'd sit maybe, just outside of this room, or I'd sit here, look out the window, and I design flyers. And I got good at it. And eventually that started kind of snowballing. And then I didn't even see this coming at first. I had a Nesby mentor, shout out to Cassidy. She probably won't see this, but she did me a huge solid. She was the regional vice that year when I was communications chair. And what ended up happening is she ended up referring me to join the regional board because everybody had been seeing the flyers and I've been getting compliments on them. Like, man, who's designing these flyers, man? I go ham on these, boy. But it ended up becoming something more than I ever thought it would. It's kind of, as they say, you don't necessarily like hunt for the positions, but you kind of end up being called for them, or referred for them in this case.
Hmm.
But then I was referred for not vice. That was the year right after. So that was my junior year, kind of, yeah, junior year. But I think I spent excuse me. I spent some extra time as a sophomore, I think maybe like another semester or so. And that was, yeah, 2022, 20. No, that was 21, 22. That's right. I'd been public relations chair that year after. So you have to, to get into the regional board, for those that don't know, you have to sign up for, I think it's either the Shadow Initiative program, which is also a great avenue for people that do want to get involved with NSBE. And then you also have to do some interviews, a couple rounds of like Q&A sessions with the actual board. So the whole board can come and ask you questions as well. And I don't say this to scare you, but or scare anybody that's watching this really. But it's a real test of like, are you ready to be in a regional executive leadership role? Can you hold yourself accountable? Are you able to show up? I think that's probably one of the biggest things. You can show up, you can figure the rest out on your feet, right? But yeah, and I'll fast forward to when I became vice chair. I think I ran in Anaheim. I don't think I was contested that year. But this is at the time when running for the regional board wasn't that popular. And I'd been referred for that as well, actually. But looking back, it's a trip. How far I came. But yeah. So yeah, I got referred for that too. That was always a good thing for me because I didn't see myself in that light. But I'd always just been trying to work on and improve the skills that I had for myself. And I didn't know that it would become what it did for me. But, it was something that I decided to ride, just ride the wave essentially. And then that took me pretty much through the stratosphere in some sense. After that, I took a year off, because, once I got to convention in Kansas City, I was pretty tired. Been working all year. I was, you had to make agendas. It was our first year back in person, by the way, as vice. And then, we had to do conventions and get ready for our own conferences at the regional level. So there was a lot of work that went into trying to figure out what it would entail and everything. That was pretty rough on me. So after that year, that's when I decided to take a year off, just do your senior year, graduate, and if you want to continue with NSBE, go ahead. If not, you can let it be done there and hey, hang your hat up on a pretty good NSBE leadership career, I guess you could say. Yeah. And then after that year I took off, I ended up in Entrepreneurship SIG, not to be too extended in my speaking. So cut off there. You can take whichever way you want.
Got you. Yeah, that's I like hearing everybody's NSBE story. I remember I had Avery on, Avery Lane, former national chairperson, and I don't know, I just like hearing everybody's stories and like their thought process through each part. Like, did you see yourself being a leader at all? Like,
Not even. That's the funny thing. All it takes is for somebody to see what you're doing and then see that potential and then just ask you, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? I think you'd be a great this. And I wish I tried to do that to some extent with a lot of the younger guys as well. Not directly, of course, but just like, push them on in that sense, because that's what you need sometimes. I never probably would have ran for a regional if I never got referred. I was going to do, I think, chapter secretary after that. But, if people see potential in you, lean into it by all means. Absolutely.
Yeah. One thing about NSBE I always emphasize is largest student ran organization. So chapter level is different when it comes to leadership because you're all in the same school. You might have class from one another. At regional level, you might be in different states from each other. Like you're in Tennessee, someone's in Georgia, someone else might be in Florida. How do you keep the flow of communication helping out the chair with making sure everybody's engaged?
With the chapters
Within the board, my fault, within the board.
Okay. Yeah, it was a few ways, The most common way was we usually just had like a group me chat If not, we had everybody else's number. And, you know, as a regional board member, you're going to have really a few retreats, I think one or two usually. But there's specifically one in, I think, April. If not, it's kind of early May, where you do meet everybody on your board. And that's the first, like, first time to get a sense of, okay, what is this person's personality like? What do they like? How does my role intertwine with theirs? Things like that, right? So it's not terribly hard to keep up with each other. Like, I still talk to a few of them to this day.
Mm.
Like, I don't know, you know Isaiah, of course,
Yeah, yeah.
but we met and we're still cool because we were both in membership actually when I was vice. So he was my international chair at the time. But you know, it's also a great way to meet people as well. Don't deny it.
Nice, nice. And then let's see where to go from here. I'm gonna kind of freestyle real quick. Were there any other mentors you had throughout NSBE who helped you during your time as vice chair or even at the chapter level?
Let's see. So I mentioned, my NSBE mentor. I think I also said Travis Griffin,
Mm.
Mr. Travis Griffin, we call him. But a lot of schools don't have like a diversity director, or at least some schools, they don't have like designated directors who are key towards retention and recruiting of, you know, underrepresented minorities. So he played a huge part in that. But excuse me, a large part of me like preparing for some of the roles that I entered was through him. He would, you know, I'd just schedule a meeting with him and then he'd say, okay, well, you know, so let's say you're, I'm not going to impersonate him, but he had a very commanding presence, you know, is very recognizable, and we all were very endeared to him for it. But he was very loved. Shout out to Mr. Griffin. We always talk about him at UT because he does so much for chapter. I don't think he gets too much credit. Actually, well, he did win the Golden Torch Awards in Anaheim.
Oh, nice.
But
Congrats to
yeah,
him.
yeah. So he's pretty keyed into, you know, the inner workings of NSBE as well. Were there any other mentors that I had? Not specifically at that time. I mean, aside from my regional advisors, you know, just kind of helped me keep oriented on like what to do and what not to do. So, yeah, that's
Nice.
probably the main one.
Um, how can an introvert or non-technical member still make a meaningful impact within NSBE?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. Um, there's a few ways really. So one of the things that I did was so I said I took like a gap year after being vice. And then I got into the entrepreneurship role. Um, I was specifically the entrepreneurship resource coordinator. So that is a national committee role where you were in charge of, you know, keying in and on resources, trying to develop a entrepreneurship resource guide, instance. And I actually developed that this past year. So I did that through a few methods, through actually talking to entrepreneurs that have experience in the field. And, you know, my general prompt for them was kind of like, what information would you give to a young entrepreneur who's, you know, trying to build a startup and doesn't necessarily know where to start? You know, so anything from like, you know, see business strategies, it covers how do you register for an LLC, different types of corporations, business strategies, exit strategies, even. I mean, it goes not necessarily from A to Z, but it's enough to give you a good view of like, what is it going to take for me to be in this type of field, or, you know, this type of special interest, if you will. So, like, what that meant for me was I got to develop these skills through, um, well, skills such as AI prompting, and that's how I actually developed the guide in itself. It's 100 pages worth of actual text, but I curated all the knowledge that's in there And then I prompted AI to, write 100 pages on this subject. Give me these different topics. How do I register for an LLC? What else was in there? Minimum viable products, things like that. So what that would mean for somebody who's introverted per se, where you're not necessarily looking to be like in a regional position where you get a lot of spotlight, it's a lot of attention. You can join national committees. You can also join regional committees as well. Just keep that in mind. So every region has, whether it is like a conference committee, sometimes they'll do ad hoc committees, sometimes they'll do more focused committees like membership programs committees. But if you don't know where to start, you can always look at national committees. So you can get into NSBE, and it's not too kind of high level, high responsibility, but it's just at that level where you can still put certain skills on your resume. Like I learned the ability to prompt with AI and work with it in order to develop tools for the actual organization. So my best piece of advice is go out there and join a committee. Whether it's, engineering diversity, finance committee, programs. They also have, I think, comms committees too as well. But they have a handbook addressing that too.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of avenues to really get involved. You just got to find it or know somebody that knows how to get into them.
Refer you. It's kind of like what you said
Yes.
earlier.
Yes. This guy's listening.
Well, I would hope so. I'm the one interviewing you anyway. I was gonna say one other thing. One common misconception I see. It goes beyond NSBE, but like just making an impact in general. People think they have to have a title, like the top title, president, chair, or even like
Yes.
just anything on the e-board. You just being there at the meetings, you're making an impact alone by contributing to our numbers, help increase engagement. Who knows, you might have had a good time. Now you're telling two of your friends, and now we have more people coming to contribute to overall organization, either chapter level, regional level, and whatnot. So you don't necessarily have to have a title, even if you're just a committee member, just like Justin said, you're still making an impact because that'll lift the weight off the committee chairs or committee heads' shoulders because you're helping them out a little bit here and there. No matter, even if it's just like Justin said, making a flyer, sending an email, proofreading an email, or even just helping out with a workshop and whatnot. So I just wanted to say that real quick before I got on my little soapbox of you're a leader, everybody's a leader. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's leading their own way. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Absolutely.
In what ways, like we talked about your NSBE memories, in what ways did NSBE contribute to your life personally and professionally?
Mhm. I would say it was kind of my first attempt at a social outing after quarantine for me. So, I already had my friend group kind of fresh out of, or, going into quarantine, but, it'd been a year and a half and I've been stuck in the house. I literally been here. It was just me and my brother. And then snowstorm happened and everything. So it's like I had my own set of like life events going on outside of what I had to deal with academically, right? So
Mm,
NSBE helped me get back into the social scene to start off. Now, professionally, I would say NSBE really gave me the soft skills that I needed in order to be successful. Because it's funny. This is just like one of those full circle moments. That's just like it's just too good. Like it's just you just look back and you're like, wow, I can't believe they were right. So I had been a lot of people. Well, so our advisors, when I was on the board, they'd always ask you questions in a certain way, right? It was always this kind of it was very like objective based, very time based. You know, when can I see this done? What's the deadline for this? Give me a progress report on that. Why didn't you do it this way?
mhm.
It's always very critical sometimes, and it's very analytical usually. And I thought it was people will think it's harsh at first, but as I think it was, a junior, going into, that upperclassman level of school, and you don't necessarily have like industry experience. But I had an internship right after when I was the regional vice, and it was at a plant out kind of 20 minutes out of Nashville. And what I didn't know is that we were going to go into a lean diagnostic for a whole month, which
Mhm.
for people that don't know, that's basically where you're trying to improve like lead times. You may do time studies. So maybe if you had an internship, you had done a few of those, right? But we had done those. You'll do bill of materials, plan for each part. So it's like a cost analysis, more or less. You know, ABC FMR charts. So like rarity versus frequency of use, and we do. So it takes a lot to really condense that all into a month. And here's what really got me: the VP of the production plant would be, he would come into our meetings every like Friday, I think.
Mhm.
And he would ask the questions the same way that all of our advisors would. And I thought it was harsh at first, but then I realized, oh, okay, our advisors were trying to like, they're trying to prepare us for what's out there already. So it would be the same questions. When can I get this done? Can you get this done within the week? What are the deadlines for this? We need this to be a little shorter. These numbers don't look right. And it was direct. And to some people, especially some of the other interns, they were like, man, this is kind of, they never had that experience at the regional level where they, you are held accountable, for each and every decision that you make, everything
Mhm.
you turn in. But for something like that to, come out to me, that just kind of validated the experience that I had in most regards, in the sense that, hey, you know, not only is NSBE here to help prepare you as a student to get into industry and what it's like in the engineering world, but it also gave me the soft skills that I needed to succeed and just be able to report that out, like for example, to a vice, like a VP of like a production plant per se.
Mhm.
But it was just one of those full circle moments for me, you just look back and you're like, wow.
It's a moment stuck in
Still show.
time, just watching it unfold.
Yeah.
That's what's
And
up.
then all everybody's freaking out in the plant. And I'm just sitting there like,
We'll get it done, y'all.
mm-hmm, no panic.
Yeah, so we're gonna switch topics real quick to entrepreneurship SIG, and we're also going to dive back into your resource guide. I know it's has to do with, it's a branch under this. So first things first, you said you took a year off. Then what made you want to jump into a, so those who don't know, a SIG is a special interest group. Through we have many throughout NSB, from IT to
Yeah.
environmental to what was it,
Transportation.
transportation,
Yes, there's a patent.
IP,
Hmm.
patent, all that stuff. So there's an entrepreneurship one. So what made you want to jump to that SIG specifically?
For me, it was the fact that I had actually signed up for. So when I ended up having to extend my graduation, I just told you right before the interview, I extended it for about 3 months, and I needed to take an extra class. So I decided to take that, and I said, "Oh, this just seemed like an interesting topic. I'll just feel it out." And this was, right around June, I think, of last year. So I said I'd just take it and see what it was about. And I said, okay, that'll be just kind of my, I think it was a tech elective. But what's funny is I went to the National Leadership Conference, which is for, it's basically training the national board will train their regional counterparts. And then I think RLC is when the regional counterparts will help train each of the
Chapter
chapter
leaders.
leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I went to that, and that's where I met Ebony. I was on the committee for that as well. So just the planning committee. She was up in headquarters, and then she'd actually pitched it to me right there. She was like, "Well, I'm trying to put together a committee, uh, just for engineering diversity, and Here are the roles, pick whichever one you like. And I said, let me just pick which one aligns with my class, right? Just make it easy for myself. But I started to take it seriously when I started looking at like what the role entailed, and I realized, oh, I can, make an entrepreneurship guide and use some of the, well, not necessarily use some of the material from class, but like it was somewhat based off of that. But I also talked to the entrepreneurship office as well. But that's how I got into it. It was just kind of just in the right place at the right time. I don't know why I always tend to do that. That's just
It's a good problem.
yeah,
It's a good problem.
yeah. I make it work, but it had been something I'd been interested in as well.
Hmm.
So you just gotta work. Just work with what you got.
And how was your experience at this past year's convention? Because I was in the room with you. You were handing out the money for the People's Choice Award. You feel me? Not
Oh
real money,
boy,
by the way.
yeah, no,
How was the experience? Basically, you're back at
man,
conference working again. You
yes.
know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, one conference off where you weren't working or anything, just focusing on finishing up school. But like, how did it feel being back to work, like
Oh
at
man,
the conference?
you know, once you're a leader in NSB, you never not a leader in NSB. That's just kind of how it goes. You can run, but you'll be back.
Yeah.
That's the thing. No, in all seriousness, I actually kind of liked it. You know, I think I made an IG post, in my cash not. I really meant what I said. I was like, I ran around, hungry, hadn't eaten all day.
Hmm.
You're stuck in the same room, just meeting different people with with fake money in your hand, just pass. Rahsaan knows I had fun with
Yeah, yeah,
that.
you're, bro. I remember. A quick side note. I remember I was in a. Well, first off, Justin and I are sitting on two opposite sides of the room. I'm sitting with my collegiate chapter. He's sitting up towards the front with the money. I hear a dun dun. I look at my phone. It's him holding the money, like just holding it like this. And it's like two different pictures, and I'm
Yes,
like, bro, get this out my face.
just
This isn't
fanned
real.
out. I
I was like, this is the real money. You're like, yeah, I got the bread on me. I'm like, all right, man. All right, but that,
yeah,
that was funny though.
I was going to look crazy. They probably shouldn't have handed me the money because, like, I literally I did one of these right here.
Yeah, yeah. I'm surprised you didn't do one to.
Yes. Oh man, see, I didn't get to that. I was too busy because I was getting yelled at, like, just to pass out the money. I'm like, okay, fine.
Did it feel like you were so obviously there's Entrepreneurship SIG advisors.
Hmm.
Did it feel like you were getting talked to by your regional advisors? When they're just like, yo, get back on your stuff, man.
Yeah. Hey, again, one of those full circle moments, huh?
Yeah, you probably
Because
were
I'm just
like, yeah, yeah, I know. Let me go ahead. Let me go ahead and head this out.
low key, yes, because I was a wee little committee member, right? So I was milking that. I was like,
Mm,
yeah, they can't say everything to me. It's like they can yell at me, but it's like it's not gonna do too much, right? Like I'm still
yeah,
gonna pass out the money.
yeah,
Well, I had fun with that,
yeah,
but it was nice. I was just, I think I was literally just walking around, just talking to people, like, y'all get some money? Yeah, y'all want some money? Y'all getting that? Here's $300, and then it was
yeah.
for an activity.
Someone was like, this isn't real. And then you had to explain, but you're about to explain it right now.
Yeah, that was the best part of just running around with fake money. I'd be posted up at the door, so people would come in, and then I just turn around with a bunch of money in my hand, and I'm just handing it to them. Man, like, what? You sure? They're just unsure, like, and just the surprise on their face, man. They were just like, okay, but just to explain it to the listener, right? So this was the entrepreneurship pitch showcase. So we had to there were about 13 different presenters who were actually working on their own startups at the time, and let's still working on them now. They uh they came to the pitch showcase, and it's actually a program that the Entrepreneurship SIG does year round. So you go through different rounds of it. I think it's about two. So one at the regional, and then there's one that's going to be kind of virtual a little later off in the year, but right before convention. So those were the kind of the top presenters uh, of all like the national competitors. And the reason I'm handing out money to people is it's an activity that we do. So right at the end of the pitch showcase, if you'd been there kind of throughout the session, or you want to go support maybe a friend for per se, you had 300 fake dollars, and that's where I came in. I would just be passing out the money to them, and then we had kind of this table in the back, and you just put that money in whichever cup you thought had the best idea. But yeah, that's why I
Yeah.
had 10 bands in my hand,
It's,
just
it was called the People's Choice
walking around.
Award, by the way. So the
Yes.
audiences get it. So to break down the competition, the judges would would crown the overall top three winners, and then the audience would choose who their favorite was as well. So, shout out to Family FSU
Mhm.
Nesby. Someone walked away with two awards from the overall category and the People's Choice. Shout out to them. They're on the previous episode. Go check it out. And free plug, free plug. But did the being a part of the entrepreneurship SIG, being around, the advisors and then these people, the students and like the professionals with all these ideas, and then taking a class, did it contribute to like what you're doing now, pushing forward with the patent idea?
It definitely did. Well, not necessarily with the patent idea. I actually developed it like it was kind of just a whim of a moment idea I had right after convention. So the reason I said like electrolysis is just because I've been interested in like hydrogen cars, hydrogen engines. It's a relatively new thing, but it'll be growing in the next few like 5 to 10 years or so. So something to be on the lookout for. But yeah, I got to kind of sit behind the scenes with a lot of like, you know, a lot of the entrepreneurship SIG. I think they're called VIPs, but really they're like kind of yeah, they were just the kind of the entrepreneurship SIG board members, if you will. So a lot of them had successful startups and businesses. If not, they're still working, or they had like professional consulting businesses as well. I think Richard White was the SIG director, and
Yeah.
he's a consultant, if I remember.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
does I just remember he does a lot.
yeah.
'Cause he's so heavily involved with Nesby, and he does stuff outside of Nesby, and he does more stuff outside of Nesby, and even more stuff outside of Nesby. So
Hmm.
yeah, he does a lot though. But yeah, I'm
Yes.
pretty sure he's a consultant.
Okay. Yeah. Because yeah. I mean, he does a lot, and he had basically kind of brought forth to the rest of the program and just kind of me just by osmosis the idea that like a lot of these SIGs actually are really good for what we call like a what's it the integrated pipeline programs.
Hmm.
So like for example, you have somebody like me, you don't necessarily have to be a regional leader either. You could be just kind of a regular chapter or just a regular NSBE member. But if you get involved with, like, for example, the special interest groups early on, it helps transition you into the professional world. So, like, I remember I met one of the board members. She actually sold her business, so she had like gone through the whole process of like, I built up this business, going to sell some of the equity on it, and just kind of, you know, kind of take some of the residual off of that afterwards. I think somebody else had been in tech, few more consultants, but when you see people that are in that level of NSBE who've been in NSBE for quite a while, and it's actually a lot more inspiring. And it, like I said, it contributes to the pipeline that we don't necessarily see enough, I think, in NSBE. I wish, yeah, that's one thing I think NSBE is still kind of getting back up to full speed. Because I mean, we have so many special interest groups, right? But what you don't see is people transitioning from, okay, I'm a collegiate and I don't necessarily know what I want to do, to I've pretty much got this idea. I want to go into public policy, which is very much something that engineers do as well. So, you know, it does a lot for you. Just kind of coming to see a lot of the stuff that NSBE does do that doesn't get a lot of light.
Hmm. Okay. Can you talk a little bit more about the resource guide you mentioned earlier?
Hmm. Yeah. So, like I said, it's a 100-page guide on basically what my goal for it was to demystify what exactly it takes to be in the field of entrepreneurship. So, you know, like I said, you start with like, how do I start an LLC? What's the process for, getting all the right paperwork, going to the right websites, making sure like you have minimum viable products, what's some of the mindsets that you need to be able to take on, a lot of the key terms, and a few other resources as well. So like, what do I do about pro formas and, financial templates essentially is what that is. And I talk about that and it takes about 100 pages to do so. So like, it'll give you just about any idea that you might need and give you the information to go look out for it, kind of extrapolate on whatever that information is, right? So you may be thinking, oh, okay, I can just throw this in AI and then just have it spit out a bunch of details and information on like, okay, go here, here, and here. This guide already does it for you. So that's kind of the benefit of why I made this guide. And nice thing is, this has been actually sitting kind of in the NSBE bylaws and it's just kind of floating in there. No one really had touched it in the past, maybe like 5 to 10 years. If not, it's had an outdated version. But this is kind of me giving my own contributions back to the society. But yeah, if it's also going to be, Rahsaan, I'll share it with you. It's actually done now. I was waiting for the SIG to share it, but I guess they had some other priorities as far as transitions go. So um, I'll make sure it gets distributed that way.
Okay. I was gonna say, are you cool if I put in the link in the bio? Like, I said link in the bio, link in the description as well. If it's cool to
Yeah,
be public,
absolutely.
cool.
Yes,
Yeah, y'all heard
it's
it.
ready to
Link in the
go.
description. Link in the description. Link in the description. Get access to the guide on how to succeed. Well, how to succeed, but also the blueprint to, all the right steps from building to potentially selling it. I'm
Mhm.
saying that that's an end goal for you. Some people might have a long-term goal with it.
How
So,
do I evaluate my idea? Is it a viable idea to actually build a business out of, or is this like a kind of a tack on that you would put it with something else?
mm,
So it goes into depth, and there's also an executive summary, so you don't have to parse through 100 pages. It'll I'll give it's like 13 pages of an extra document. You can
mm,
just look at different sections and see whichever, just pick as you need. So keep that in mind
nice,
as well.
nice. And then, are there any other entrepreneurship related ideas you're working on aside? Not only ideas you've been holding on to for a while, but something to keep you creative too. Like, what are some ideas you're working on right now, or ideas you've already done?
Uh, let's see. So I told you about like, would my patent idea count?
Yeah, it will count.
Okay, yeah, because uh, I've been looking at like different things I can do with that. What industries can you go into? I think some major car companies actually have invested in hydrogen tech. So just to kind of give you an idea of like the entrepreneurship um, positioning and just kind of the mindset, you're looking for opportunities that haven't necessarily been filled in with yet. So, and there should be money to be made in those avenues. It's just you got to figure out exactly how you're going to channel that. So, like for example, my idea with like the hydrogen tech and generating hydrogen out of water or some other source for hydrogen. That could be applied to whether it's major businesses, it could be transportation. A lot of companies, like some companies, actually do provide natural gases. Like I think, can't remember the name of the company, but you know, it's essentially positioning yourself where the money's going to fall. In so many words.
Mm,
So yeah, like if I were to pitch my idea to, let's say, like I think it's Hyundai is doing. hydrogen technology. Toyota invested into it, BMW as well. So those are three major like automotive companies that everybody knows about. I could license, like for example, this patent to a major company, and with that, you would have to pay me if you were to use like my patent in a design that any of those three companies would have made. So you get paid for, you know, having the design. It's just you need to monitor it and just make sure that the money does fall in your lap,
Yeah.
figuratively speaking. That's just kind of the mindset of getting into uh, what it takes to be an entrepreneur. But that's probably been my main focus after I left convention.
That's what's up. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing, because like you said, it's only been a few months since convention. You can only imagine like a year or even 5 years from now, once you
Mhm.
continue growing and expanding on that idea, or even similar ideas to that. I don't know too much about hydrogen technology, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I can read a little bit about it and get somewhat of understanding of it to follow
yeah,
to a point where right before you get to too technical stuff, I'm still there, but
yeah.
it's just filtering, just going through it from here out the other at that point. So that's what's up. I'm proud of you for that, and hope you keep going and pursuing that opportunity. One last question, like, how you feeling? Like once you like, what was the pro? Actually, what was the process like for writing up the patent? Probably should start
Yeah,
there.
that was it was a very fun process for me. The thing about getting into entrepreneurship is that usually if it's a field that you're not interested in, you're not going to be as passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, in effect, you're not going to pursue it to the fullest, which is something that entrepreneurship does require. It's something
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of people should know, especially Rahsaan could tell you so much about that because, well, he's pursuing this outside of work, which I'd imagine takes a lot of your free time, but you
Yeah.
do care about this, right? Yeah. You know, but for me, it always starts as a passion project. It always starts as an idea, right? And then you just kind of build on it from there. Also, like for example, my patent pending. I can say that now. So
Yeah. Patent pending.
yes, after you file, you get a year off. So there's provisional patents, which is what I have, and then the official patent can be filed about a year after it gets approved. But developing it was a lot of technical work. Um, it started off as me just kind of getting interested in hydrogen tech and just talking to like ChatGPT, just saying, hey, can I get this information on like, you know, what are these car companies doing about, like hydrogen fuel cells, all that fuel infrastructure and everything. And then trying to see which ways I could apply it to the real world. And then I said, well, if I were to make an engine, that uses hydrogen as fuel, okay, which you can do, how would it take the fuel here and then just kind of going through that process. And I said, oh, wait, there's this one point that's kind of, it's hard to, really categorize or solve this because it's the problem that kind of stops this from being a practical application.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually where the money is made. Right. So I said, okay, well, there's no way to convert hydrogen, at a very fast rate. So I said, okay, there's this, and this. You got plasma without going, I won't go
Yeah.
too into the
Two
weeds
into yeah. Yeah.
because I had to like, when I tell you, I could technically be an expert in this with how much stuff I've done in the past 6 weeks, but you know, you have to know your product in some ways. And I think that's the biggest thing for me. Just like, I go from, okay, I'm ready here. Okay, I have this information. Let me improve my design. And then you have to optimize it and then say, oh, wait, okay, then you have to foolproof or, just like test it and pressure test it and everything, make sure it's actually a good product. And then after that, you're trying to like say, okay, am I ready to write the patent yet? And I was saying that for a good like 3 weeks. I was like, okay, I don't have everything. I need to get the drawings. Geometry on this could be way better. Stuff like that. And I'm like, oh. And now I got to go back to square one because I realized, oh, wait, no. there's this variable that I didn't count for. So it's this constant loop. But if you enjoy doing the work, it'll come easy. You know, I've been able to get up every day and, still be able to just go at it again and again on this topic just because it's so fun to me. But yeah, it's a long, you have to be diligent in the process.
That's what's up. And Justin, do you have any closing remarks or anything else you want to touch on before we close out?
Um, oh man, not too many things, but I do want to say, man, you always got to get involved. Or at least I recommend people to get involved. I can't tell people what to do on
Hey,
this.
sign up for a committee.
You know what to know. But yeah, but in all seriousness, don't be afraid to get involved. I think people need that now more than ever, especially, given the current like political climate and everything. I won't go too much into that, but you already know. Now's the time to really start to band together, especially with like NSBE and everything. Things are getting unpredictable, but if anything, go find something where you can work on your soft skills, something you're passionate about. And yeah, like for me, a lot of life is just getting ready for that transition into the professional world. So that's really what it takes. Just develop those soft skills until something really sticks.
Got you. Got you. Well, thank you, Justin, for being on. And this is also kind of a full circle moment. I went from asking for help one day, next thing you know, we're friends outside of NSBE, and now look, almost 3 years later, still friends. Now you're a guest on my platform. We're graduated. You know what I'm saying? We're all doing big things. It's crazy looking back on that. It's been almost 3 years since FRC 2022. So
yeah, I can't believe that. Just this amount of time has passed. It's just so odd to me. I don't know where all the time went, man.
Yeah. Wait till we get older. We're gonna be like, dang, we're gonna be 30, like, man. Our parents are like, man, where did time go by? You know what I'm saying?
Somebody better not call me Unc, I swear.
No, they're gonna call you that next year, if you go on UTK's campus.
They ever call that me? Never mind.
I already get called Unc, bro. I get called Mr. NSBE. I get called Mr. NSBE, the NSBE mascot. I got a lot of names when it comes to NSBE. But yeah, Unc is one that was before all the NSBE stuff, because I was usually like in one of my friend groups. I'm the older one. It's like a year difference between all of us. But yeah, I was called Unc. I'm like, dang, I gotta stick with this now. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Once again, Justin, thank you so much for being on Crazy Full Circle Moment. Who would have thought we'd be right here, helping each other on each other's platforms or whatnot, or even with what we're doing in life. So I want to say thank you. And to the viewer, I want to say thank you to you as well if you made it this far. Please give us a like, a comment, subscribe, and share this with a friend who may find something beneficial out of this episode. And then go back and watch previous episodes too. You said what?
I said, they will.
Yeah, make sure you go back to previous episodes as well. It's not like a show where you gotta watch all the episodes to catch up. Anyway, getting off track again. Till the next episode, or till next time, stay tuned for more updates and take it easy.